see them in frame now, but I've started getting my my flowers specifically at Trader Joe's.
Sure.
But here's the problem.
It's about time.
Yeah, I know. Like, people are starting to notice you're poor.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the problem with it is I have a harder time there than like Target. Like, I can't leave Trader Joe's with just flowers. I went grocery shopping on Friday. 2 days ago, and I was like, well, I don't have these strawberry shortcake macaroons.
No.
I better grab a few.
You know what? I do think Trader Joe's is the target of grocery stores. Absolutely. I'm not afraid to take a stand and be the one to say it.
Good.
That's
fine.
It.
So what is your, like, I feel like everyone has their Trader Joe's, like, hidden gem. I don't know how often you go there, because you buy, it's different, right? Because, like, you buy for a lot of people.
Yes.
When you do.
For me, when
Trader
I go to
Joe's
Trader
is not
Joe's,
conducive to that.
No, Trader Joe's is when I'm going on vacation and I want to stock up the hotel room for snacks for myself. Then I will go to Trader Joe's. But when I'm feeding the 17 to 48 children that I have, I can't keep count. I do not go to Trader Joe's because I do not feel like working over a mortgage payment. But for myself, it's going to be things that are like chocolate covered like blueberry, dried blueberries, or acai. I don't know how to pronounce that. If you can't pronounce it, like, I'm in.
It's acai. That's how it's pronounced.
Shaka Khan is how it's pronounced.
Do you ever watch Undercover Brother? Shaka Khan. No, someone out there knows what I'm talking about. It's Eddie Griffin.
Cold open.
Complete. Check. Tell us what your Trader Joe's pickup is. I will go back tomorrow. I don't give a shit.
Oh, Jen Edwards says Trader Joe's light roast coffee and peanut butter pretzels. Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. They do have some really good desserts.
I'm late to this game, but I have this will be the last I talk about it, then we'll do a formal intro. But I have 3 sisters. The youngest of them, she's like she's like an influencer, and she has like she's done like grocery store hauls and stuff before.
Really?
And she's my she's my
grocery
Trader
store
Joe's
guru.
plug. Yeah, she's the plug, because I remember I was like, hey, I found this like jalapeno like limeade. And it's so good. And she's like,
I kind of want to have her on the show and do a Fandom social about grocery stores. Like,
yes,
if you're
right
fans of different stores. Yes.
Right in our wheelhouse. We'll take down the Fandom.
I am so intrigued. Like, does she have something I can subscribe to, listen to?
I'm sure. You know what's funny about her is she had an account where she was doing couponing. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I used to do like extreme couponing.
And she had like 20, I could be exaggerating, but it's just what felt like 10 to 15,000 followers.
I 100% believe that.
And then she's like, I'm done. And just shut down the account and just left these 10,000 couponers just completely in the dark. And now they're just all paying full price everywhere.
Wow. She let them down. She led them down a path and then just left them there. Yeah.
Well, speaking of letting people down, welcome to Fandom Social, everyone. We're very, very happy to have you. Happy Sunday. It doesn't feel like a Sunday because we have like a day off in 2 days.
Right.
But guess what? We're working tomorrow.
Yep.
That's
working tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, everyone, welcome into Fandom Social. My name is Paul, and our turn of the century host, Autumn, is here. She's born in the 1900s. So was I. But
way back in the 1900s.
Way back in the 1900s. Welcome in, everyone. We've got a really fun show today. We're going to be talking about the Explorathon, the stuff that you guys should have done your homework for, as well as what we're going to be doing next time, because we me and Autumn are both going to be out of town in July. Like, July is a really, really busy month for both of us.
A weird schedule for this show next month.
So our next show is next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
We got a lot of writing, a lot of research, and a lot of homework for you all to catch up on, very, very soon this week. But we'll get into that in a bit. But we are also going to be talking about what I feel like has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking toxic fandom, the psychology of hating what you love. This was a real kick in the knees for old Blue Eyes Benjamin Hernandez, because my YouTube algorithm will never be the same.
You're the one that took the research hit on that one.
I was in the trenches, and all I can say is that all of these people that were spouting the same nonsense, they all look like the kids from Nightmare Before Christmas. You know, like the three kids.
Yes.
And then a lot of them. Well, one of them specifically that I didn't like. He's shaped like the mayor, kind of built like an acorn, and he was sitting there talking about how ugly Brie Larson is, and I'm like, man, we just don't understand irony, do we? But
it must be amazing to have so little self-awareness.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, hey, we've got a show, don't we? So
that's true.
So everyone, welcome in. We are so very happy to have you guys here. Thank you guys also so much for kind of bearing with us. Me and Autumn, unfortunately, it's just us. So we don't always have the time and the opportunity to promo the show as we normally would, because we came out freaking swinging with episode 1. We bought billboard space. We were on Spotify.
We had mascots in Times Square. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. We were on Regis and Kelly, which I think so. We dug up Regis and we were on Regis and Kelly, and it was crazy. But with both of our schedules, we also do have full-time jobs, which keep us incredibly busy.
I know.
But not so busy, Autumn, that one half of this show was able to go on another show.
That's right.
And talk with some friends. So I want to take this opportunity and just thank Miguel and Ileana from Toy Quest 101, from me and Autumn. Thank you guys so much for having us, letting us promo our show. Autumn, I know you know, you knew them before.
And I'm kind of jealous that you got to go on the show. Not going to lie, kind of jealous.
Well, you weren't invited, is what it was.
I'm aware. And I will be looking for my own shows to go on. It's on now. If you guys have a show and you want me on, that's how desperate I am. I'll say yes.
Guys, please put her on the show.
Make a show. I'll say yes.
But you were definitely missed, and you were invited. It was a lot of people. It was a lot of people on the show. There was 8 of us. No, there was 10 people
on the show.
On the show.
That's amazing.
And normally we talked to Miguel from Toy Quest 101, and he had
Miguel.
Said that he might. Hopefully.
Hi, Miguel.
Hello, Miguel. But we were talking about it and how much. Me and you were sort of in which we'll talk about, fandom. We may even get into the toxicity of collectors fandom, but we did kind of talk about that. It was a perfect segue, Autumn, into it, because me and you have a very unique opportunity and very unique perspective when it comes to all sorts of toxicity within any type of fandom. We've been sort of in it for a decade now. Comic books, movies, pop culture, collectibles, TV.
We've kind of and
now video games.
Been there.
Yeah, I'm starting to think we're the problem.
Yes.
It was funny, and for those of you who did watch Miguel's show, again, Toy Quest 101, they are fantastic. We love both of them. They've been friends of ours for a very, very long time. And they were gracious enough to have me on. And we're going to bring Autumn on and we're going to talk. Autumn, I have an idea for a show with them.
Okay, because I have an idea for a show with someone else too. So someone else. Yeah. I'm going to promote them in just a second too, because I'm going to do a shameless plug because I want them to invite me on their show.
Okay. But yes, thank you again to Miguel and the entire team. There was 6 Scale Mafia, 6 Scale guy. There was a ton of people, and there was a panel of incredibly knowledgeable and wonderful people who just live and breathe collectibles. I kind of felt like a fraud. They didn't treat me that way, but I think because of our that's probably true. But I think because, Autumn, of our experience of just being in the community, right? People just assume that we're oh man, we know tons of it. And I think you are more of a collector than I am for sure.
Yeah.
But I set the tone when I started that show, and I was let's see how little I know about collectibles when the cameras are not on.
True, because I think I do collect more than you, and I only collect a little bit because, as we've talked about, I have 1 million kids. So when I collect very carefully and specifically. And yeah, I've heard that it was a really big panel. Yeah. So I do not collect that much. And when I do, it's very intentful because I don't, like I said, I don't have a lot of income to spend on collecting because I've collected human beings and that is way more expensive. So yeah, you and I actually aren't huge collectors for being as part of the community as we had been for so long.
I just don't think we're conscious collectors. We are like, this is cool. This is like Doctor Who. I'll get it. I don't care if it's like super well made. I don't care where it's coming from.
I like 80s collectibles too.
Yeah, just, you know, small stuff. Just stuff. So again, we'll let Autumn do her shameless plug in a second. But again, thank you so much to Toy Quest 101 and all those gentlemen over there. If you guys are not, please go subscribe to their channels. They are fantastic. And they've already invited us back, Autumn. So
awesome. I want to do it next time.
Yeah, we'll do it. All right. Okay. Shameless plug time.
Okay. So I met these guys that actually I work with at my other job. And they have, hold on, let me make sure I get the name right. Okay. So they have a podcast called Bald Guys and Bad Movies. And they are both bald with beards. I work with them both. They're delightful. And they have this podcast. So I decided to check it out. And they just review bad movies. And not every movie that they review is a bad movie. And it's not just a review. It's like a deep dive. They go in and they talk about the whole movie. And they are so delightful to listen to. You should really check it out. I want to say great. I've started back at their very first episode. And I think I'm only on episode like 14, 15 now. But I think they're up to like over 100 episodes.
Autumn, what are some examples of movies that they've talked about that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I can't. Nope, I can't do it. I can't remember any movies. But yeah, I did talk. They always have a thing at the end of the episode with like, hey, if you want to recommend a movie.
AJ's comment.
Yes, you would fit, AJ. You should see if you can audition. At the end of every episode, they remind people, hey, put your suggestions in if there's something that you would like us to cover. And so in a meeting that I was in with them for work, I was like, hey, the last agenda piece on the meeting is,
oh God,
I would like to recommend this movie right here. And I explained it to them and they said, would you come on and talk about the movie with us? And I was like, heck yes, I will. Absolutely, I will. And so hopefully that will be coming soon. I hope that we can coordinate our schedules. I can get it on their production schedule and do like a one-off with them. So much fun. But if you guys like movies, you like to talk about movies, you like to talk about terrible movies, definitely go check them out. It's called Bald Guys and Bad Movies. Oh, okay. Here's some of the movies. Scream 6. They talked about Babylon, Tetris.
Tetris.
The Flash. Now they don't, like I said, it's not always bad. It's always like just gonna talk about movies. But they started off just talking about bad movies. And they're delightful. It's Troy and Michael. I love them. So check them out. And hopefully someday
do they do the community thing like Troy and Abed?
Yes, they do in the morning. But I think we should have them come on. We should do a special episode with them. And they don't ever do live streams. They just do podcasts. So we can put them live and talk about movies.
I'm sure people who get into podcasting love when you rope them into a live show.
Actually,
they love it.
What if we did a special episode to do pirate movie live on this show? Yes.
Let's do it. I'll finally have watched it.
Yeah. You'll have to. It'll be your homework. I love it. So anyway, shout out to those guys. Go listen to them. You guys will not be disappointed. If you love movies, you'll love these guys. Okay.
Bald Dudes, Bad Movies. Is this called?
What?
Bald Dudes, Bad Movies?
Bald Guys and Bad Movies.
Bald Guys and Bad Movies, everyone. Go check them out. Check them out. Check out Toy Quest. We'll just bring all of our friends on, and it'll be like, like the Last Supper. That'll be fun.
Let's just have everyone
on. Great.
If you've got a show or a podcast, we're going to have you all on the same episode at the same time, all on screen together.
Yeah, let's bring them out.
Let's bring them all out.
But yes. All right, everyone. So now we gave y'all some homework, which feels like
it's so long ago.
It feels like when your teachers would give you homework over the summer. Yeah. And you're just like, the hell, it's been a month. Why would I remember?
Or like over winter break.
But it's still due. It's still due. All right. Well, we're going to take just a few minutes to talk, because we did already talk about this on a Friday show, sort of like a what do we call it, like a clip show.
We did an impromptu live stream in the Facebook group a couple weeks ago because we could not go live here, but we decided to go live in the Facebook group and just hang out. And we were going to mention it briefly, and then we went off and talked about it for a long time.
Howdy. Sorry. All right, so up first, we are going to talk about a series of unfortunate events, the bad beginning. I chose the worst possible PNG for this, it looks like. I didn't realize how blurry it was. But we have, let's see, there it is. So it was a series of unfortunate events, the bad beginning, just the first one.
Let's back it up a quick second. What is Explorathon?
Very good, Autumn.
What are we doing?
Are you gonna me go?
Sure. Okay. At the beginning of, like, while these episodes do have themes, like today we're going to be talking about toxic fandom, the psychology of hating the things you love. Before we do that deep dive, we like to do a segment called Explorathon, where we pick something to watch, something to read, and something to listen to. Preferably something that Paul and I have not consumed yet, so that we can expand our horizons, find new cool things or new terrible things. We don't know because we haven't seen it. And then we talk about it together, and we give it to you guys as homework, totally optional. You don't get any extra points if you do it, but optional. And we can talk about it together. We talk about it in the Facebook group, and it's a lot of fun. We think it's a lot of fun, and that's kind of all that matters because it's just us.
It's running the show here.
So what we do is we talk about it in one show, let you know what it is, and then we come back the next episode, we discuss it, and then assign the next one. So this was our homework from many moons ago, our last episode, and now we're going to discuss them. And the thing we chose to read was a series of unfortunate events. Now go ahead, Paul.
Now, Autumn, this is a very this is an interesting book, I think, and also, interest of full disclosure, I listened to this book because I just sometimes don't have the time, and I can do it. I can multitask and listen to it while I'm working, so that's nice. But so first off, we'll get to some of your guys' comments, but we'll put it out there and then we'll answer. What if you guys did do the homework? What did you think? If you've never listened to it, if you revisited it, did you experience it differently now that you are a grown-up who's also has credit card debt? Is there anything that you noticed differently?
Yeah.
And we did talk about this last time, Autumn, but I'll go back to it. Like, it was darker than I remembered.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dark. Like, and also for a kid's book, it walks a really fine line of not pandering to kids and not pandering to children as, like, in this case, this word means this. Like, the writing is so good that it does give you the opportunity to, it provides you the opportunity to appreciate the word, and it moves the story along. I just think it was just great. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think I loved it. It was very charming the way it played with language. I think that one of the I've thought about this a lot and looked into, kind of read a little bit about why did this. It was very dark for children's stories because lots of people die in it. Lots of people die. These children are traumatized over and over and over again. So why was this so appealing for children? Why did they love it so much? And I think what I came to discover was that the reason why kids connected to this is because it was so dark and it made kids feel like grown up, like they can handle these dark things, and like it's not for babies. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a big kid story. It's not for babies because lots of dark, scary things happen, but also the charm of the way it was written is very melodic and it felt musical. I don't know how else to put that, but it was a very charming kind of cadence of the way it played with language. Yeah. So I do think that it was very engaging, and the subject matter made children feel respected in a way that they can handle these darker things. So yeah, it was definitely dark, and these kids are it's like traumatizing for children, but like in a fun way.
Exactly. We did not get to be so hilarious without any trauma.
No. And the thing is, my generation, when we were traumatized as children, it was just dark. It was like Atreyu drowning in the sadness swamp from Neverending Story. I mean, or whatever.
I thought you were talking about like the band Atreyu. No. I was like, oh my God, what happened to them?
It was like, we had so many traumatizing things to watch as children, and we did not get comforted by charming little language. So like, I can, and like all the movies that were really big in the mid 80s that were really dark.
Asphyxiation in this context means.
So I thought, I think we talked about it a lot already, but I just want to say it was just an interesting read, and I'm glad that I actually had a chance to read it.
Yeah. So if you guys read it, let's see. Let's pull up some of these comments. Dwayne finally read one of these. Yeah. I'm glad you finally read a book, Dwayne.
Yeah. Oh, real proud of you. Thank you. Artax.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
If you know, if you guys who are my Gen Xers, you know.
Laura had said, who was a cat, said I hadn't read it, and it was definitely darker than I was expecting. Mm-hmm. Let's see, and then we had and funny, to hang out a baby with a window. And
when's that not funny?
I mean, what are you gonna do, right? I mean, you don't have to be just a pop star to hang a baby out of a window and make it funny. That's a Michael Jackson joke, not our first of the day. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you right now. So, one of the things that I did really appreciate about this, and this is something that I'm like not super into with, let's just call it like Star Wars and some of the other like Marvel properties, is like in this book and in the show, whichever, and the movies, whichever iteration, the villain, like Count Olaf, is just a dick. Like there's no redeeming factor.
Nothing redeeming.
They don't try to make him.
He's not like Thanos, or
Loki. And you're like, oh, I get it. You're like, no, he is just a real curmudgeon. Pardon my language on him. Oh. But he is, it's Gummy Bear Geek says, I now really question what's wrong with me, because I love this entire series as a kid.
Yeah. I think that the answer's in the question. Mm-hmm. I think that is what's wrong with you, because you love this show. It molded and shaped you into the dark little demon that you are.
You're our dark little demon. Dwayne, he's giving Barney Stinson energy when they're like, Barney, who did you cheer for in in all the movies? And he cheers for all the villains in them. Oh,
yes. Oh, I like Desmond. Desmond has a hot take. It was when it translation. I didn't do that part of the homework.
It was
Yeah. You know what, Desmond? I'm right there with you on a different part of our homework tonight. So we'll move on.
It's fun, everyone. If you're enjoying the show, I will be yelling at you for the next 40 minutes. So buckle in. All right. So that is what we read for last week. For those of you who did do the homework, you want to keep talking about it, jump in the Facebook group, Fandom Socialites, or find us anywhere on our social channels at Fandom Social. Go to our website and you can email us. It's hello@fandomsocial.com, right?
Yep.
You can email us there. All right. So go ahead.
I was going to say, please, the main way to support our channel is by subscribing to our YouTube channel. That is the number one way to help us grow. So if you guys can hit subscribe, we would be your best friends forever and ever for as much as that's worth.
And don't you worry. If we grow in size, I promise we will not grow emotionally.
Nope.
We are stunted. All right, so I'm going to move over to our watch, because I think our listen is what most people engaged with.
Yeah.
So the watch, again, is another thing we talked about. This is Annihilation. This is a film by Alex Garland. It was directed, and the screenplay is by Alex Garland. It's based on the book Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, part of the Southern Reach trilogy. You guys know Alex Garland from Ex Machina and Devs. If you haven't watched those, go watch those films. They are incredible. Okay. Autumn, again, this is another thing we've talked about, but what did you think of this film that I know you didn't really watch?
The first half was a film that I definitely watched. And it had actors, it had sets, it had special effects, and it had everything.
Great.
I never finished watching it. It's weird because it had the elements of something that I really would have enjoyed, and everyone that has seen it kept saying, oh, you'll really like it. It's really great, and they really love it. And I just couldn't connect with it, and I don't know why, but I just didn't care. And I went back to try to watch the second half, and I just couldn't connect with it. So I don't know why. Just nothing for me. Nothing.
Yeah, it was... I found the movie to be interesting. I didn't read the book. I'll probably never read the book. It was just I'm not a fiction kind of guy. I everything that I read, at least now in my adult age, is nonfiction, and it's safety manuals mostly.
Comics. So you only read nonfiction comics?
Well, comics has pictures. I mean books, real literature.
Okay,
All
literature.
that I read, literature. So yeah, so I probably won't get around to this, but I did watch. You probably remember me talking. I watched this like 45-minute student dissertation breaking down this film and breaking down the comparison between the book. And so there was like this really interesting sentence that I think kind of encapsulates the movie. And it's, all the people you see that are just absolute, that are like torn to shreds, they fall more into the annihilation category. They are annihilated. And then people like, spoilers, if you haven't seen this film, that's on you. We asked you to watch it. For everyone else, like we see with Natalie Portman, they fall more into the assimilation side.
Okay.
So it was a mixture of annihilation versus assimilation, and based on your intentions.
Assimilation is a version of annihilation, really.
Okay. Yeah, and it's this. Boom! Look at you go. This you did. That's only through one half of the movie you watched. So, and it does a really good job, I think, of showcasing that the movies and everything, it's that annihilation and assimilation are both equally good and bad. Like it's both good and bad. It's both destruction and creation. And it's like it plays with that. Oh my god, I don't know what's happening with me today, Autumn.
I'll cover for you. I'm Paul, and I have lots of deep thoughts about annihilation that I read from someone else saying them.
Perfect. That's literally the story of my life. But yeah, the film itself again continued. Like I think Desmond had said it earlier, but yeah, the film does just continue to be beautiful. It's very, very well acted. But when I did watch it again, I was just like, like there was a lot more that I wish would have happened. Like all of the main characters, all the main protagonists, they're all like the top people in their field in like microbiology, physics, and it never really plays into the movie at all, except with Natalie Portman. It would have been cool to see more of that and more evil bear. I would have liked to see more of the evil bear, which I don't think you got to the bear, right?
Nope.
No. You get to the alligator though, right?
I did see some kind of alligator creature. I didn't care. I was like, that's a monster.
Ooh, scary. Girls are scary. Well, if you, let's see. Desmond says, this isn't just the book was better, but there was an underground Lovecraftian style temple in the Annihilation book that didn't make it into the film that I really wanted to see. I think, Desmond, that Lovecraftian temple was supplemented with the lighthouse. So and it was more like it was more of like a literal beacon that Alex Garland wanted to portray. I'm not sure. This dude was talking in this thesis, and I tuned out. It looked like a human glow stick. Question for you
and the audience: should I go back and watch it when I have a little bit more time and energy to focus on it? Is it that I was too tired or unfocused, or is the movie itself difficult to like? Is it worth it? Should I go back and do it again? Do you feel that it's worth watching?
Are you asking me? Or?
You and everyone. Like, should I do
Yes, go watch the movie.
100%? All right.
It's good. Hundo P, dog.
Okay. Okay.
It is good. It is worth kind of seeing through to the end. It's one of those films.
It's good. Hundo P, dog. New T-shirt.
Yeah, you can buy all of our merch
that we definitely have made.
Social.com. Go there, please, and request it and pay for it, and then send it to us.
And then design it and post it, and then give us the proceeds. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is worth watching.
I'm just gonna leave that where it is. Irony. Do you, Desmond?
I'm so tired. And I'm exhausted. You're exhausted. I'm so tired. That just broke.
Let's go to listen.
Right. Before that, last on this, John Galgano, looking great. I like your glasses, John.
I like the pose too. Nice.
He looks like he's giving me like a Shel Silverstein kind of vibe.
He looks like this like he created his own brewery, and that's the picture. You know what I mean? Like
nice, hot.
Yeah.
All right. So John Galgano says, I definitely think it's a film you have to be able to pay attention to in order to understand it. If you're distracted, you won't get what's going on. And to tack onto that, I think you won't appreciate what's going on.
Okay, so I'll do it again when I can give it some attention.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when that is. All right.
So that was an author photo. 100% that was an
absolutely
author photo.
It
yeah.
was.
Okay, listen. Is Alex
Aronowitz
here? Because we're about to make him mad.
Probably not. All right. So next, the listen was Hole's Live Through This. Now, Hole was the band of a one, Courtney Love. I have this here. Boom. Look at that. I do love this picture, though.
Yeah.
It is pretty sweet. All right. So I know, I think, we've gotten messages here and there from folks. I think everyone interacted with this portion the most of it, probably because it's the easiest to digest, right? You can just listen to it in the background. So Autumn, first thoughts of when you re-listened to this.
It was simultaneously authentic and really poser, like at the same time. I don't know how to put that, but like it felt really organic and authentic, but then it also, and it may just been some of the tracks or the whole thing, it also felt really, like I said before, try hard and like really trying to prove that they were the voice of a generation or that they were better than Nirvana, and that it was like, it just felt too much, which is also an authentic vibe at the time. And it was part of the whole Riot Girl, many R's and no I, which is also deep. Anyway, movement of the time, and even that movement was a little bit much. So I give it a solid B-. There were some tracks I really did love that were great, but as the whole, I found it a little bit tiresome and a little bit exhausting in a not in a cool way.
Big agree. What did you think of it? Like, were you able to listen to it and not hear Courtney Love at all?
Nope.
Or was it just like...
This just felt like the Courtney Love show. This was Courtney Love screaming about Courtney Love, and for better or for worse. And so for some of that, it was very honest and brutal and very insightful about who she was as a person, and very honest. But in other times, it felt like she was exploiting herself. And like, please look at me and look how deep I am and look how messed up I am and look how torn I am and buy my album and make me number one.
Yeah, there was a lot of thank you, Adam, because I know you were like, wait, okay, one more. Do you remember this coming out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I was in college at the time, so like this was my time. If I was ever gonna love it, it was when it first came out. Like I was the target audience for this. But as I talked with Alex about this, because Alex Aronowitz who's in our Facebook group, you guys may know him from our old job. We used to work with him. He has very strong opinions about this. It's a very big album in his life and in his history of his own experience. And we realized part of the thing was I was very much into grunge music, but there were sub-genres of grunge music. And there was rock grunge, which was like Stone Temple Pilots and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and all those guys. And that was where I was really into that music. And then there was more punk grunge. And this definitely was more in the punk grunge, which was not my particular flavor of just screaming, yelling grunge. But
yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
The weirdest hot take I think we've had on the show.
Yes.
Yoko Ono's musical streaks versus Courtney Love's musical streaks.
Yes. You know what,
insufferable.
Joey? Correct, Joey. That I never made that connection, and you are 100% right. And in the same way that Yoko Ono was both very earnest and also very tiresome, that's how I felt. Oh my gosh, it's very Joey nailed it. So
Nail on the head, dude.
There were some of the tracks I really did like. It was just all together. It was just a bit much. And so when I was in college, I listened to a little bit of it, and then I was kind of done. But I also wasn't a huge Nirvana fan.
Oh yeah, I always say that's my musical hot take, because I was like, I think Nirvana's just fine.
They have their big hits are fun to listen to and fun to rage to your grunge, and then I'm done. Like it doesn't have an impact. Not like me in my Pearl Jam era. Don't bother me. I'm listening to my Pearl Jam.
You have not left your Pearl Jam era.
I have never left.
Never.
No.
Now, so I thought this was interesting. It was a good album. There's a lot of weight, and there's a lot of true crime weight behind this. The fact that it came out a week after Kurt Cobain's body was discovered.
Yeah.
That was quite a bit. I mean, how much of that can you attribute to it being Courtney Love, and how much can you attribute it to being the label? But tons of bands have, stopped music coming out like after like tragedies have happened. Like I think it was Whitesnake had a, they had they'd had a fire at one of their shows, and they put off an album for like a year in respect.
Yeah.
So I just think it was a mixture of Courtney Love wanting to pay homage to Kurt Cobain, because I do think she truly, truly loved him, and it was also playing into her competitive nature.
And it was in character of the character she had created for herself.
Right.
The character that she had created is a selfish, twisted, messed up person, and so whether that is actually who she is or not, the timing of the release could be seen as a publicity stunt, cashing in on exactly her character, which is someone who would do that.
Yeah, it absolutely tracks. I feel like I have spurted so much noise out about this album when we did that like quick episode the other day in our Facebook group, Fandom Socialites. You can join now whenever you wherever you get your Facebook groups. So it is absolutely like it wasn't important, or again, as we've said, like we said with like Jean Diamant when we watched it. Is it the best? Probably not, but it's impactful.
Yeah,
right? It's impactful and it's important.
It definitely has its place in that whole part of history, for sure.
Absolutely, and
I was just gonna say, I grant that I'm gonna say this, but Pearl Jam, much as I love it, is kind of the pumpkin spice latte of the grunge world. Like it was very easily digestible at the time, and so like I'm gonna grant that I wasn't all that hard and edgy in my love of music, but which is fine. I don't apologize for that. But as much as I didn't connect with that, I definitely do think it had its place and it was right where it belonged in that era of music history.
Yeah. McCoy Culture. Hello, how's it going? But yeah, I just think, we were talking about Alex and how the album's important to him. He's like, I don't want to hear anything about it. But F. Wellington says, apologies to Alex Aronowitz, no offense, but now I'm going to say something offensive. I listened to the album first thing in the morning. That was a huge mistake, tainted for the rest of the day.
That might explain a lot about Alex.
Yeah.
The Alex Savior listening to the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe. But just because, I've learned with a lot of things that I love, just because it's important to you doesn't mean that it's good.
Yeah,
You could just have this wave of nostalgia over. Ghostbusters.
Gene Dillman.
Ghostbusters is my hot take, by the way. In case anyone didn't hear me cough, it's not that good. So
this guy.
Yeah, I find it to be very similar, where the movie was like so impactful, right? It changed so much. The monetization and the blockbuster effect that Ghostbusters had, and actually what it did, it was so important for that time. Same thing with Flip Through This, where it definitely caused a scene. The music itself is like objectively good, and it got really high marks, but it just you just can't see past Courtney Love.
It never would have been, the music itself I think was fine, but it never would have been as successful and huge if it wasn't part of the story, of the narrative arc of grunge music at the time. So I feel like I think we covered it.
Yeah. We're good. So let us if you guys want to keep talking about Live Through This by Hole, don't. I'm good. Yeah, we're good. I don't want to read, and I don't want to see Courtney Love's eye rolls anymore.
No, you're all done.
I'm done with it.
I think for next week's Explorathon picks, let's wait and talk about that till the end of the show, because they are going to be tied into our theme for next week, for our next show. Sure. So we're going to come back to our Explorathon. We're going to come back to the homework later. We'll let you know what the picks are for next week, because we are going to jump into the next part. Are we ready? Do you have
All right.
Do you have we didn't talk about this. Hey, Paul, come over here for a second. Paul, switch to channel B.
Okay.
Channel B. Other side.
Oh, right.
Did you create? Is there like a game, or are we just gonna go right into?
No, we're gonna go right into it.
Okay. There's no game today.
No game today.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. We just there's a bit to talk about with our main topic, and now that we've kind of shifted the Explorathon towards the end, it'll also go into what our next week's topic actually are our next couple shows are about.
Weeks, yeah.
So, I am not getting nearly. I mean, Game recognized 20 people here, so it's not like I'm going to get destroyed. But I thought people would have more of a reaction to the Ghostbusters comment. I'm glad that people are coming around.
Well, you know what? Dwayne has said something hot to go with your hot take. It was okay, nothing special. I think that Ghostbusters benefits a lot from the nostalgia of Gen X because it came out during our teens and childhood, and so it's one of those things like. Goonies, which I'm sorry, that stands the test of time. Come on. Goonies, Indiana Jones, the original Star Wars trilogy, E.T., all these films are perfectly good. They're fine. They're great. But they will have so... all three Star Wars movies, I'm going to say, are fine. But they're always going to be amazing to me.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Sorry. There's my... Yeah, you can see it. Anyway, you can't.
We're
it just messed up my thing.
Yeah, it's worse.
Totally worth it.
Now I'm way up here.
I got this. I got it.
Yeah, this is going
anyway.
Great.
That was the whole bit was worth it. Okay.
Yeah, so we really could just talk about this all day, but we won't. So we do have a deep dive topic that we want to talk about now. There's like
part 2 from last time.
It is. There is so much that can be said about our main topic, which is toxic fandom, the psychology of hating what you love. Now, this is something that me and Autumn, unfortunately, have a lot of experience in. We have been involved either personally or professionally in a decade of fandom, and not only just fandoms, but multiple fandoms. Currently, we are both in the video game industry, so we have seen what toxic fandom looks like on the video game side, in movies, in TV, in collecting. Which we talked a little bit about.
That we're both in video games, but that is a coincidence. That has nothing to do. Like we met in a comic book store, working for this comic book store. So we worked in comics together there, and then we worked in comics together. I mean, then we worked together in collecting, which is a lot about movies, TV shows, and all of that. And now we both individually work for video game companies, which is just a coincidence. So we're experiencing that side by side as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So it is something that, unfortunately, this may be the only thing me and Autumn have legitimate authority to talk about.
Yes, toxic fandom.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't think there's a toxic fandom we haven't experienced professionally.
I was going to say music, but I've played in bands.
Yeah.
And I've seen how annoying even the ska genre is. I'm like, come on, you're ska. You're not, come on.
But I feel like while everything might have its detractors and fans and all of that, I've never seen anything like pop culture fandom.
Correct.
Comics, TV, movies, and video games. I don't think I'm missing anything. That fandom and collecting that goes along with those things, it stands alone. Like people who are sneakerheads, I've seen some fandoms, and while people might fight about certain things, it is in no way this toxic cesspool. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think people on Goodreads tearing each other to shreds over.
Books. You're not looking where you should be. All right. So we do have a loose. We wanted this one to be more conversational, but I do have some sources. Autumn again is incredibly busy, and she's got a lot going on at work, and just there's a ton going on. So I led the research here, so I wanted to just cite some of the sources that if you guys wanted to go back, either fact check some of this or follow up on some of it. Our sources will be Cynthia Vinny, who has a PhD in media psychology. Her article, "What is Toxic Fandom?" There's a Vox article that I had read by Aja Romano, and it's what we still haven't learned about Gamergate, which we'll get into in a little bit, and about how that has led. Someone had mentioned the female-led Ghostbusters, and how the hate for that, the hate for Captain Marvel, and some of these other, and Ray, and how some of that was just infected by the ripple of Gamergate and just what that was allowed to happen. And so we'll cover that, and then lastly a thesis paper that somehow I read. I don't know why.
Were there pictures?
None.
That's crazy.
Because it wasn't fiction. I read it. So this is by Yoon Ki-shun and Michael Sagas, who are from the University of Florida. They're two doctoral candidates in the field of sports management. Now, they took a really interesting look at fandom and toxic fandom and something called social identity theory, but through the lens of sports fans and like what it means to be like, my dad was a Sox fan, so I'm a Sox fan. I don't marry anyone who's not a Sox fan. Like, all of that research can be applied to pop culture. All of it. There wasn't one unifying factor in that could not. So if you guys want to check it out, again, Yuki Shun and Michael Sagasti from the University of Florida, you guys can, you all right? All right. I think if you do die on camera, that is how that old gypsy lady said we were going to die, is on camera. I'm sorry, I'm making it worse. But anyways, everyone, so there is a ton of there's a ton of stuff out there for you guys to learn and go and read about toxic fandom. I also, you know, as I always do, can I talk about this now, Autumn, about the amount of dumb YouTube stuff I watched? Okay, I won't take up too much time because it just grays my hair even further. And I watched probably 4 to 5 hours, and these are not like 1 hour at a time. They're like 5 to 6 minute videos about like why Kathleen Kennedy is the worst, why why the new Indiana Jones is following an SJW agenda. And I'm not here to be inflammatory, but like those are titles of these very public and well viewed, getting more views than we do, topics that people will cover. So I think it is something worth noting about, like, I really wanted to see what some of these other folks had said about why they felt so strongly against some of these things that we're going to review today. And I wanted to look at it in that form. But, you know, Desmond Hastings says, sports identity isn't the best comparative, but only because there's no common agreement on what a nerd is, where there's at least some agreement on what a Red Sox fan is. I disagree, because there's levels. I mean, it's like saying a Star Wars fan. Like, I'm a Dodger fan, and I'm a Cowboy fan. But, like, I don't have I'm going to throw some sports names at you, so just stay with me. Okay. I don't have Dak Prescott, and I don't have Clayton Kershaw's numbers and their jerseys tattooed on me. So while I do have
giant murals of them on the wall?
But they're off camera. I mean, while I do appreciate the rebuttal, and we can absolutely talk about it, I do disagree, because there are so many levels to what it means to be like a Red Sox fan.
Right.
Like, we are, like, I'm a Star Wars fan and Autumn's a Star Wars fan, but we're not
very different.
But we're very different levels of Star Wars fan, and we are
and different types, like different things in the Star Wars fandom that we both are fans of.
Yeah, correct. And we've been lucky enough to run in circles that are pretty inclusive, and they have always been, but it's not the case. And we'll get into that a bit. Yeah. I think, so let's just first and foremost go into what is a toxic fandom, what is toxic fandom, which is, it's a buzzword that has been thrown around by journalists in recent years, and news outlets and other folks who are doing these YouTube videos to identify pop culture fans who engage in behaviors that are considered negative or unacceptable. Now, you guys all may know these behaviors can range from people who just give negative responses on Twitter to bullying members of Star Wars off of social media due to death threats, due to doxing, which is when they publish people's personal information. So when we're talking about toxic fandom, we want to be careful that we're not painting such a broad, in broad strokes with a broad brush. And there is just so much that can be covered. We just want to talk about it simply as an entity and how it has existed, and to be fair, been portrayed as a majority, which it is absolutely not.
Absolutely not. They're just what we used to call the loud minority.
The vocal minority is what you used to say, and I still say that to this day. That Autumn taught me that when I started at Sideshow. It's the vocal minority, and it doesn't represent everyone, but I also learned something. I, was working on a game and it just came out and it was received really well. And then there are a few people that go online and they say things. And we had our president of our company talk about how, we was in this fandom. And I think the statement that he made applies to everything and to everything that we can talk about. And he had said, we just hear people complaining about the game, but that's why they are the vocal minority, because the people who are enjoying the game are playing the game.
Yeah, they're not. They're talking about it.
They don't have to go out there and talk about it because they're just enjoying the thing. So that's why, whenever anyone says, well, why don't we hear about the good things that people liked about the Ghostbusters movie? It's because they liked it and they're talking about it in their circles and they don't feel the need to defend it because they enjoyed it. And then you can get into social identity theory in a second. But
I want to this is reminding me of there's a whole idea when you're public facing. Like I've worked in social media and marketing for a long time. When you're dealing with public facing of any kind of brand, any kind of entity, there's like, even if let's say you work in like hotel, okay, like you work at a hotel and you're doing their brand. If people had a really great stay, everything went really well, rarely do you take the time to go and post something about it on social media. Not just leave a review, but like go post. You're not, if you enjoyed it and it did what it was supposed to do and you had a good time, you don't tend to post about it. But if you had a bad time, you didn't like it, you feel entitled, for better or for worse, to some type of justice. And that justice can be in the form of public shaming. So you're going to go and you're going to talk about how much you disliked it. But because they're not when they go to talk about how much they dislike it, there's not a whole bunch of people already in whatever space that is talking about how much they liked it. So there's no one to fight with. They're just posting their negative thing and they're moving on with their life. Now you take something that people connect to intimately, which is like, let's say Star Wars examples, or any other kind of fandom, comic books, movies, TVs, video games, something they have a personal connection with it. So they do go online and talk about how much they do like it. If you went and watched the Spider-Man film over the last week or so, you probably went online and said something. You probably did. Go say something about it, positive. And those who didn't like it or have something negative to say now have people to fight with, because there's people there having a conversation, and vice versa. If you show up to go talk about it because you like it and you see a bunch of people saying how much you hate it, they hated it, now it prompts you to say something. So now there's fighting going on back and forth. Whereas other brands, social spaces, they don't have that intimate connection, and people who liked it aren't talking about it. So I think that's part of what leads to this toxic fandom, is the fact that people do connect to it, and there's now an arena to fight. There are people there to fight with. And it gives you a sense of justice if you hated it, to fight with someone, and if you loved it, a sense of justice to fight for it. So I think there's that sense of justice locked into, for better or for worse, that toxic fandom and the fight around it.
And I want to say one thing that will lead into the rest of this conversation, and then we'll get to what people are saying in the chats. But it does come down to this theory that was prompted by a psychologist named Henry Schaffel, which is the social identity theory, and then it was also sort of back-ended by by Jung Kachun and Michael Sagas, as far as something called integrated fan theory, where when you and I'll use the perspective of the videos that I watched, right, of people saying this thing. I told you, Autumn, before the show that I boiled all of these videos. 8 hours of listening to these idiots talk. That's mean. They're just real mad. They're just real mad.
They have things to say.
They have things to say. And it comes down to it being very clear in that it is an attack on them.
Yeah.
They identify, and again, part of a social identity theory is the premise that a person develops their social identity based on the group they are affiliated with. The theory develops the possibility that group members could share the same interest while still not being interdependent. Now, that is the same. We'll look at, again, I don't want to talk too much about it, but Star Wars is a really good example, because it is a generational franchise that we just don't have on that scale, with the exception of maybe like Star Trek. But even Star Trek is not to the same level that I feel Star Wars is. Now, with Star Wars, I mean, there is this inherent level of gatekeeping being that is built in. That like I was there for the originals, and that's what it is, and that's all that there was, right? How many people have you all online seen that the prequels and the sequels, they're not canon? There was campaigns going around when The Last Jedi was coming out. There was campaigns going around when Phantom Menace came out. It has always been this way, but it's because people feel very attached to these, that if you are attacking or ruining these franchises, you are doing that to not only them, but their childhood.
Yes. Oh, and I'm going to come back to this, and then what Laura just said. People who, what you just said, people who claim that insert current movie show is ruining their childhood fail to recognize that when they were children, they enjoyed those things uncritically. 100% true. 100% true.
Yeah, and I feel like there is this level, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't feel well researched enough to really get into it, but there is this level of misogyny and racism that comes into toxic fandom, and we'll get into the catalyst for all that being Gamergate. Now, I don't want to get into what quantifies the misogyny and the racism because I have not read enough into it, but a lot of these people who are defenders of their perspective of being anti this, anti that, their narrative all boils down to one sentence, and that's, we just want good stories. That's it. And they'll say, like, I don't have a problem with a female-led thing, as a franchise, as long as it's a good story.
Right.
The thing that is, and it's always cut there, right? Because all of these properties or all of these videos are released in a microcosm. They are released in a vacuum of like-minded people who aren't going to question them.
Yeah.
But it almost makes me want to bring someone on the show, Autumn, and ask them, define a good story.
Yeah.
What is a good story to you?
Yes.
Because what you feel is a good story is not a good story to me.
Right.
There are representation issues that do exist, and they've always existed. And a majority of these franchises, again, going back to Star Wars, just because it's the one I think that is the most ubiquitous amongst everyone here, the problem is that so many people found themselves as like, I look like Han Solo, I look like Luke Skywalker, and they're the hero. And so they've never had to sit back and try to identify with a person that doesn't look like them, like so many people of color and people who are in the LGBTQI community have had to do. And so now that the shoe's on the other foot, you start getting the thing of like forced diversity. I just want good stories, and it's this defense of a perspective. And I feel
for sure. I was going to say I one time had a conversation with a Star Wars fan who was talking about how much the sequel sucked, and so I was like, and like how it's not real. It's not a good story. Like when you said, I just want a good story, is what prompted this. And I said, okay, what about the prequels? And they're like, no, those were all terrible. Those were terrible stories. And so I go, let's talk about each one. And I said, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Is that a good story? That was a good story? No, we went through every single film, and every single one they did not like. So I said, so why are you a Star Wars fan?
Yeah.
I don't understand what you love about it. If they did not love Episode 4, 5, or 6, and they were in my generation, so they were like, yep, Empire Strikes Back is often from my generation the highest, the most loved of all of them. But even that, when I said, let's talk about the story, tell me about the story and why that story, the actual plot points of the story and how it was told, is better than anything that happened in any of their films. And they couldn't really talk about why it was better, and they admitted this was an issue and that was a problem. So it's like, that to me was fascinating. That to me was the epitome of somebody who loves Star Wars and hates it so much. Like, what do you love then? And so when you say like, what's a good story? Tell me a movie that's a really good story. They often can't. They often can't tell you because their whole identity is in tearing down and being disappointed.
Absolutely. And they're like with and then everyone, we will scroll back up and we will see the things you guys have been talking about and comment on them. But it's like with anything with art, right? Like it can never be, I I don't know. Maybe Autumn, we're not a good example because we've just been so ingrained in this, and we've kind of become a little numb. Let's just call it what it is, like to some of the negativity that even me and you have received just for doing stuff on collectibles. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Jesus, the amount of times that, like, you know, me and Autumn have done, you know, we've been fortunate enough to do shows with tons of people, and you know, there was this running joke when we would do things that, like, I didn't see Ghostbusters, right? Or Big Trouble in Little China. And they're like, how did you get a job at this pop culture
I remember you're a faker, or that we were often both said that we were like just shills pretending to be fans when we weren't actually fans. And it was like, because you hadn't seen Big Trouble in Little China and Ghostbusters. And it's like, he's not even 30. He's been busy. And also you have your own fandom. You don't even have the fandom of a Gen X person to be a fan.
Exactly. And there are some, and it's why, like, I don't go around spouting, you know, like, I joke, right, about Ghostbusters, but there is that is a good example of something that, like, I don't have a nostalgia filter on for that movie at all. So when I watched it again, I'm like, the CGI is cool.
Yeah.
It made me never want to watch Bill Murray in anything ever again because I couldn't stand him.
Fans. Phony fans. I love
it. And it's not for me, right? Like, it's just not something, but I just think we're in this era where things, like, are unfortunately becoming binary because it's just easier. It's just easier to be, like, in or out, right?
Yeah.
So it just becomes more and more binary. And I just, like, I've learned to take that stuff on the chin, but I could see by people who are, like, diehard prequel fans, right? So if all the fandom that you're in just tears that down, that is what I feel classifies people as toxic fandom. And
I love this by Desmond. He says, online discourse has devolved to the point that all people who disagree with those who have a platform are shills. The word no longer has value. So anybody, and it also seems like anyone that says, oh no, I actually really like this. Shill, or you don't, or you're just shallow. You don't understand what good things are, and it's interesting. I'd be fascinated to get a list from the guys that you listen to, and I'm going to assume that they were guys because I'm going to make that assumption. I would love to have a list of the things that they consider to be the best of pop culture. These are the best movies, the best TV shows. These are the good ones. I would love it. So yeah.
And again, so
I can fight with
to our point, we will get into what exactly it means to, like, be a shill, because there was an event that happened in 2014 that I feel was a catalyst for where we find ourselves in now, with people, I mean, just having the nerve to say stuff. Like, I talked about it earlier about this dude built like an acorn talking about Brie Larson. I'm like, if you were in the same room with her, you would need 2 inhalers.
Yeah.
I know. And, like, it's just, and there was an event, again, we'll talk about it, there was a catalyst for that. But I want to go to the comments and talk about what we're saying about some of this.
Great comments,
We'll start here with Joey. That he said the first fandom that comes to mind on this topic, talking about toxic fandom, is Rick and Morty, which has become bigger than the show. Unfortunately, I like this.
I love Unfortunately.
That's up there with Delulu. You heard that one?
I have not. I love it.
But people
Let's toast Delulu, Unfortunately.
All right, and we've lost it. We had street cred for a second. And so that's a good point about for Joey. Thank you for bringing that up, Joey, about Rick and Morty, because Rick and Morty definitely has, like, I think it's a great show. I think it's well written. I think it's well animated, but it definitely has a stink on it, of what people think about that. And, like, you remember the Szechuan sauce McDonald's incident about how they were, like, ruining and doxing McDonald's middle managers. Like, these are just middle managers going to work and saying that they are part of the deep state who are hiding McDonald's Szechuan sauce from the real fans. I'm like, my goodness. I wish anyone had this kind of time to do anything productive. And for that, there is also this. I mean, again, we won't even get into it, but like the main character being Rick Sanchez, right? Who is this sort of like stoic jerk character, but's brilliant. Like we've, there was also this wave of that with Sherlock. We got that with the Doctor. It can kind of be that from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
You have like Dean Winchester, right?
Yeah.
Iron Man, Doctor Strange, like all these people that people have identified with. But I think it's when it comes to a head, it can be negative. But Laura Keeler says there was an artist I used to follow on DeviantArt who used to post these diatribes against the Jodie Whittaker era of Doctor Who. These were posted with his artwork.
Yeah.
And we have
I like Andrew Wishborn's when I was saying, like, give me a list of the things that you do like. And he says, when you say that, but a lot of them will unironically say something like old Star Trek because it wasn't woke or political, which is exactly. And I believe Steve Nara said, yeah, that kills me. Tell me you never understood Trek without saying you never understood Trek. 100%. The people who are fans of, I did go back and watch every episode of the original Star Trek series. And it was 100% woke and liberal. That was SJW left and right. And that would be that's the pinnacle
but they were
for
white.
Some people. Yeah, the pinnacle for some people of like, that was when it was good. It was like, oh no, that was so progressive and so much social commentary. But yeah, 100%.
It was absolutely. It's just, I mean, there's a thought process that all art is inherently political. So like, I don't understand what people sometimes, like, I say that sentence to myself all the time when I was watching all of these jabronis. I was like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, what would this look like? Like, even in the Star Wars, I'm so sorry, Star Wars fans. I promise I'm not doing this on purpose, but like, they just, I feel like Star Wars fans just hate everything because it's kind of like just cool right now. But they loved almost unironic, like almost without a fault, Andor, which I don't know if you've seen it, Autumn, like through, but Andor is a really good show. Diego Luna's amazing in it, and it was almost like they were bummed that there was nothing bad for them to say.
Yeah.
And then there was this follow-up video for another YouTube channel that I was watching, and they had revealed the budget for it. And they were like, of course, so-and-so would do this because they're pushing this agenda. I was like, that makes no sense. But it doesn't matter. They're loudest.
The other thing, too, and I'm going to take a cynical approach on this, is that that's a lot. And I noticed this in comic books, collecting, and in pop culture, and now in video games. Like, for the people who are so vocal, that's your brand. Like, it's not good entertainment for them. They won't get audiences to engage with them if they talk about how much they like something. Especially when I used to see collectors doing reviews about different things or talking about different companies, whatever it was, like, they're not going to get viewers. Viewers tune in to watch that drama if they're talking about a YouTube show. And you watched a lot of YouTube stuff. If you had some of those guys going on there to talk about how, they actually kind of like the Star Wars stuff and it's pretty good. And here, we're going to talk about our top 20 moments in the entire Star Wars franchise and why we liked it so much. They're going to lose half their audience because their audience is going there for the violence, for the drama, for the gladiator show. And so if they're not delivering that, so it's really just their brand, and it's just kind of capitalism. You know what I mean? Like, they're driven to be popular, and they're rewarded for being cynical and terrible and negative and causing and finding the worst possible take on everything. They get rewarded for that by having people engage with them. They either agree with them or they fight with them. But if they just go on and say how much they like something, they won't get the views. So, they're rewarded for behaving that way.
Right. And, I want to bring up one other thing before we get into. We're going to move away from pop culture and talk about other toxic fandoms that absolutely exist and also ruined by you. And also, there's a Beanie Baby movie coming out with Zach Galifianakis.
So good.
I'm so excited. But to sort of encapsulate this, Desmond, I think this is a great point worth noting. And Desmond, thank you so much for chiming in today. Some things about new Star Wars are worth not liking. I didn't like that Chewie cooks and eats porgs while hanging out with them. That seemed dark for Star Wars to me. Doesn't mean the movie failed me. And I think it's important to know, and maybe we didn't say it enough, but like there are absolutely legitimate reasons why things like why stuff is not good. And that's why I subjected myself to all of these yahoos who are doing these terrible videos, because the phrase like I just want good stories, like it makes sense in general. But the problem is like, and there are moments, and I'm gonna put myself on the hot seat here. There are moments in this video where I'm like, I agree with you. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think the pacing was good for Obi-Wan. I thought it was bad. And then they're like, yeah, and then there's this all these forced people of color. I'm like, and you lost me. And
back out.
Everything you just said becomes invalidated to me because you are now like forcing it through this one lens.
Gina B says, toxic fandom has made me disengage from online discussions. Regrettably, Notice I keep my opinions to myself. I'm too old for those online yahoos, toxic people. 100%. Yeah. Oh, Amy says, I think we should find those channels and creators that focus on things like that, the best parts of things, and support them. I love this idea. I mean, kind of, but I think I like the idea of making a list and posting it, like getting you guys in the community to post a list of like what are the creators, people who are making content, celebrating and enjoying movies, and let's make a list and let's support them and let's watch them and let's engage with those conversations, because that is a good way to I think that's a really good way to combat toxic fandom, is by supporting the opposite. I love it.
You think we're shills you think we're shills now, just wait. Just wait. But so we don't want, because I found this to be important, and we do talk about music here quite a bit, I felt it was important to not just talk about movies and TV and things that are considered maybe more mainstream pop culture, but there are really good examples of what I found to be toxic fandom in music. Now, I also have an interesting theory, and I'm not saying I'm sitting here to topple the patriarchy, but there are like really specifically interesting things in the music industry that are inherently patriarchal, and not necessarily for the reasons you're thinking. Like there are softball reasons, of course, but again, I'm going to name some of the fandoms that are some of the largest. So with with the larger population, that does tend to mean that you have more room for people to be toxic. Now, just to name a few, Swifties, which are Taylor Swift fans, Army, BTS fans, the Beehive, which are Beyonce's fans, and pretty much all of the metal and punk genres of music.
Really?
There are levels of gatekeeping and toxicity in all of those names and all of those fandoms that I just said that exist in an entirely different way than anything in pop culture. Now, let's start up top with one, Autumn, that I know means quite a bit to you.
Okay.
Swifties. Now, Swifties are fans who find themselves... maybe we'll just say Taylor Swift is predominantly the artist that they maybe listen to the most.
Or at least are emotionally connected to the most. Like they may not listen to other things, but go ahead.
And again, everyone, with everything, this is the minority. But I think it's important to showcase that all of these issues exist even within music. And it's not anything new. I think this all exists, but it's like, with Taylor Swift specifically, like she's doing this Eras tour. She's got so much clout right now that I think it's just all apparent. And it's so funny that I watched way too many Swiftie videos from a few accounts, and then I learned just so much gatekeeping that even happens within that fandom. Now, I'm not saying that these fans are specifically toxic to other folks, but and that this goes across the board, but within their own fandom. And there are people who are like elder Swifties. Have you heard this
Yeah.
term?
Yeah,
I
yes,
know
I
you
have
do.
heard this
Don't
term.
play coy. I know you're trying to keep it together because I know you really like her.
I have some things to say about Swifties and that culture.
Yes.
Okay.
And there was this, it was really interesting. It was this girl, I think her, like, I don't want to promote her channel. There's nothing bad on it, but she just sort of takes like a fun look at Swifties in general, and was discussing things that people say about us that are absolutely true. And then she provided some evidence because she's in the fandom, and there is this air of like, oh, people will post videos like these are the best, which I didn't know how much of a discography Taylor Swift had. It's insane.
It's huge.
Oh my goodness. And most of it's pretty good. And she has like, so people will post these videos like all of Taylor Swift's 6 tracks from all of her albums ranked
the whole
from
thing.
10 to 1. And something that this girl had said is that people will be like, I can't believe you put this above this. You must be new here.
Right.
And I'm like,
a lot of gatekeeping.
That is what I find to be in music very specifically very apparent in that industry where people are very protective of the older music or any of the music that got them into that artist.
Well, it's interesting because there's certain artists that their whole brand and their fandom is much more like films and TV shows. It's much more of a cultural thing than it is just being a fan. Like if you're a fan of Foo Fighters, you just like Foo Fighters. You know what I mean? I mean, there's not as much of a, if you like, I don't know, John Mayer or whatever, some other band or entity, you just like them, you listen to them, you may have some discourse with people, but there are certain ones and you name them, Army, Beehive, Swifties, where it goes beyond that. And I don't know as much about the Beyonce fandom at all. I do know from work and then from my own, like my kids, I understand Army pretty well. And that and Swifties thing is that in the storytelling of the albums and in some of the marketing that those brands do, that it's not just that we're listening to music. There's an overarching narrative with many layers and levels in the work that they put out, and they're very, very good marketers at like dropping. And I'm just going to use those two, not BT21, BTS and Taylor Swift. That brand, they're brilliant at creating a full universe. There's a whole, like I said, a narrative with story arcs and villains and conclusions and new arcs and chapters and eras where the stories, the songs itself sometimes becomes very meta and it is self-referencing something in the fandom or something. And so that fandom has so much content, more so than like if you just like Luke Combs, you know what I mean? There's not as much content of story. And I discovered, like, I always knew Taylor Swift existed, but never really cared. I heard her on the radio, whatever, it's fine. And then during the pandemic, I discovered her through Bon Iver. I have many genres of music that I like. And one genre that I'm really into is like the singer-songwriter, American folk, Americana folk. I really love that whole genre. And I'm a huge fan of Bon Iver. And he did a collaboration with Taylor Swift. I forgot the name of the song, where they did a song together, Exile. And so I was listening, I was going down his rabbit hole, discovered this song, didn't know it was Taylor Swift singing. And I was like, who is this? And I was like, Taylor Swift. And then I looked into it more because that's how I am. Deep dive, realized she wrote it. It's her song. He was singing on her track. And I started looking at the lyrics and listening to more of her music. And I went down this Taylor Swift rabbit hole as more of a singer-songwriter person, having no idea what Swifties were and that even existed. And so I have managed to discover her music, listen to her music, and really become a fan of her as a singer-songwriter while being parallel to the Swifties and never getting into that world. Now, when she the whole thing of her re-releasing her songs, and she did the 10-minute version of All Too Well, which was a huge takedown of Jake Gyllenhaal, and there was a whole era of people yelling, "You know what you did, Jake!" And I was into it as a story.
Give her her scarf.
Yeah, give her the scarf back, Jake. So what happened for me was that it wasn't so much I was a fan of Taylor Swift as a goddess or a queen or an idol, but I was fascinated by the story, and it was a whole story of the fans and her, and the stories that she tells in her music all come together as like just it's a fandom, and it's fascinating and so entertaining. And if you're in it, oh man, I can't even imagine the way how much it must have an emotional impact, because she drops clues, and some of these things she's not dropping a clue of any kind, she's just living her life, and people choose to see the
her shoelace is tied
and this way
it means like, the release date is July.
Perfect. But she also does play with them. She's very playful. She and her management team are very playful in what she does on social media and what's in her lyrics of her songs, and the order of the songs on the albums, and like it all does mean, like the 7th song always means something on every album, and it's like a whole thing, and they're brilliant. And Swifties, like, I see you. I'm not there, but like I see it, I enjoy it. It's great. And K-pop, same thing. Pete just says, like, K-pop provides another level of accessibility with variety reality shows, live stream chats, like Desmond says about parasocial relationships. It's 100%. They've created a universe for people to live in.
Well, there's a story that I think represents most of these. The punk and like metal genres, we don't really need to get into that because I didn't do a lot of research into that, just like a little bit, but it's also like, this isn't real metal, this is real metal.
Oh my gosh, yes.
No one cares.
Yeah.
If you've ever said that and you thought it was cool, it's not cool. Never once has been cool.
No, but it's got that whole High Fidelity, that movie with Jack Black.
Exactly. Jeez. But there was a story of this reporter, he's an Australian journalist, who gave a less than perfect review of not Midnights, not Folk. What's the one she did where it was like, is it called Red?
Yeah, probably. I mean, Red. There's an album called Red.
Okay, so it was that one. There was he gave a 7.5 out of 10.
Oh boy.
That was his review.
How dare he?
Essentially what happened was that this reviewer had said that the album was contrived, that it was a rehash of music that she's done, and not nearly as good as it could have been, should have been, or probably will be, essentially implying
that man's career.
That the album will not get better with listening to it. And he was doxxed. They put out his mom's social security.
Oh my gosh.
There was a Facebook group of 10 to 15,000 Taylor Swift fans all on the hunt for this dude's personal information.
That's horrific.
And I didn't write down the name of what his name was, but by doxing, it wasn't just his personal information, but multiple death threats, multiple people calling in to get him fired, and he was fired because they just didn't want to deal with that anymore. And so now, if you'll notice, there are very hardly any subjective reviews of Taylor Swift, of K-pop albums.
BTS had an album that came out, and here is where the album is. It's an album that came out.
Exactly.
Like,
it is essentially an infographic plaque that you can read on any park bench, because while the BTS fans, or ARMY, well, I don't know a lot about like Blackpink and some of the other folks, but they've done a lot of good. ARMY has done so much good during the pandemic, during the that fire that was in Australia. There was this fire, and I thought it was really cool. BTS had to refund a bunch of money to their fans because they couldn't make the show for whatever reason, and all of the fans donated that money to the Australian wildlife. I think it was Australia where that fire was.
Back when we thought in early 2020 that was the worst thing that was going to happen that year.
Boy,
we were so naive.
Yeah, we sure were. And I just think that it does, like, the one good thing does not offset all of the other things. I mean, there are multiple issues where people have hid information about BTS members. There was one, I don't remember his name. I think it's Jungkook, maybe? Or no, Jin. Got in a car accident. It was his fault.
Oh, okay.
hit someone, and all of a sudden one day there was all of these various there was like the social campaign that said, maybe it's Jimin, I think his name is Jimin
Yeah.
Pretty, Jimin Handsome, Jimin
Yeah,
Sports.
yeah.
And essentially they were cooking the algorithm for Twitter so
Yeah.
that you
could
just
drown it.
anytime you looked up BTS or Jimin,
Yep.
it was drowned.
Yeah.
And I mean, I find that to be not only incredibly parasocial, which people have brought up here before, but
Yeah.
that is a level of toxicity that exists,
Oh,
I believe,
yeah.
solely in the music industry.
Because positive toxic fandom is still toxic.
Right.
Yeah.
Or K-pop, not really BTS, or I didn't find in my research it being BTS, but a lot of K-pop fans saying when someone would pass, I think one of the One Direction members' sisters passed, and essentially they had said this wouldn't have happened if they stand this person, and they just dropped gifs of their favorite K-pop person, and that's called something, I think, ratioing, maybe.
Yeah,
I sound like an old man. I'm so sorry for everyone.
Yeah.
But like that, I believe are levels of toxic fandom, whether people agree with me or not. Like I believe that is there are just so many. There are so many things to discuss there, and that happens again with Taylor Swift. Like that happens with Nicki Minaj, with the Beehive, and I found, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I challenge people to find a pop superstar. Not talking K-pop.
Okay.
A pop superstar that has a fandom like a female pop star.
Okay.
Like Shawn Mendes. I'm sure there are
Justin Bieber at the time.
Oh, yeah, the Believer.
Justin Bieber, right? In his heyday, had that same kind of fandom. And it's scary to, I think about that artist and the people who manage that artist profile. That's a lot of power to wield.
Yeah.
Because that fandom can do a lot of good. Like the Taylor Swift Swifties have done some amazing positive things. Army has done amazing positive things. They have been a source of social change and justice for the better. But man, they are also dangerous as hell. And I just can't imagine getting to the point where you have this literal army that in today's world with social media and the internet being the world in which we live, holding the power of millions, and you can accidentally set them on a path.
And I had found that at least with the folks that specifically that I was researching, being the Beehive, Katy Cats, Katy Perry's group.
I didn't know that one.
Arianators, I think is what they're called. Ariana Grande's fans. Of course, Taylor Swift. There is this inherent societal sort of expectation for these female pop stars to have a nurturing and cultured fandom where that doesn't exist with Drake. It doesn't exist with The Weeknd, because so here's my theory. I think that a lot of the these like male megastars, they're not looking to create culture, they're looking to be worshipped. And it's this inherent.
I agree with you. But I think that boy bands from the early 2000s and Justin Bieber, they fall into the same category as these female pop stars that we're talking about. Because I'm sorry, they are marketed as very non-threatening, feminine men. They just are.
Right.
And that is what's their appeal. They are not overly masculine in the way that they are presented. In traditional senses of masculinity, they are presented as very non-threatening, feminine men.
Right. I think I'm starting like a Drake fan club with everyone.
You're just gonna be real intense and passionate about it.
Yep, and that's gonna be my personality. Drake, Shawn Mendes, all of the music men.
I'm gonna start it for the Lumineers. I'm gonna start all of the Americana people that I like all these people that I'm really big fans of. I'm going to start in super intense fandom for them and see how toxic we can get. Let's go. Let's go, girls. Dun, 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 dun.
God, it's hard to not love Shania Twain. But, there is just, again, there are inherent issues with toxic fandom all throughout, not with just music. I'm sure there's with art, people who are in book culture and sports and all of it. And I think it would be considered, I think it would be considered toxic fandom personally. But I think, and then we can sort of maybe dovetail out of here, Autumn, with our one of our favorite words that we've learned throughout our decade of doing stuff together is fan entitlement.
Oh my gosh.
That is where I think most
you created a thing I love, so therefore it's mine.
Mm-hmm. And I have watched this for years. I've followed your career for years. You owe me this. Now, it is something that I found to be really, really challenging to research and look into, because fan entitlement, it's like, I mean, on the surface, right? Like, you can define it as being this parasocial relationship with not only the creator, but as well as the work that the creator creates. And with that, there is this sense of ownership that comes over the work, and people feel like it is part of them. And so we have found that specifically in like collector communities, there's in music communities, in definitely in movies and film. I feel that, I mean, what do you think, Autumn? I mean, how do you feel that like fan entitlement like has changed? Because you've been involved in fandom for a long time, but I feel like right now we're at this crazy ass precipice of like more so than ever, right? Like people have this inherent need or want to be like involved. Like I am in, like I've watched so much of the MCU. I am in it. I am just as important. And I mean, don't get me started on, I know you love it and we've used it for work before, but I hate the like second by second breakdown of trailers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's one of the worst things that has come out of pop culture in the last 10 years, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But do you consider like that as like fan entitlement, or like as someone who's been a fan of, you've been in pop culture for so long, how have you seen like fan entitlement shift?
Well, I do think that it definitely got worse, because I've been a fan of things since before there was the internet, because as we have stated, I am extremely old and from the 1900s. And so back when we would watch something before there was the internet, we watched it, we talked about this in our last episode. We talked about things in small groups, and that was about it. But then once there's the internet and then social, then that became like there's forums, but then social media came out, then it exploded and everyone can talk and everyone has a voice and everyone feels entitled to things. But I feel that since the pandemic, it's gotten worse, because a lot of us were at home, and this was what we had. This was our way to interact, and we consumed a ton of media. We collected a lot of things. We read a lot of comics. We consumed a lot of those things much more intensely than we had before. We were all going through some kind of trauma and some kind of huge life change. A lot of us were, even those who were not sheltering in place because they had to get out there working, still had a massive change in their life and trauma because they were exposed to these things. So like this escapism of pop culture became more important. It became elevated and disproportionate. And this is just my own perception. A disproportionate percentage of our lives was taken up by these imaginary worlds, these books, these comics, these movies, and us having opinions about them was our social time, was the way we engage with other people. That's what we had to talk about, because we weren't out doing other things. We were at home. So what we had to talk about was this. So I feel that we became more connected to these things, more possessive of these things, because they were our experiences. We weren't out in the world experiencing things. These were our experiences. And so therefore we became more connected to them, and therefore more entitled. And when you have a whole generation of people for a couple of years dealing with isolation and depression and anxiety, and we're hyper focused on this, there's going to be some unhealthy levels of entitlement to control those things, to own those things. So I feel personally that the pandemic has a huge role in how entitled and obsessive people are in the last couple of years. I do think it's worse lately, and I do think that's part of why.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what everyone else thinks about like the idea of fan entitlement, and more importantly, like what you know what, everyone, we'll just be honest here. This is a safe space.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever been like a toxic fan? Because I was thinking about that, Autumn. I was like trying to understand like toxic fandom. If you were one, I can guess what it would be. It had to be Buffy, right? It had to be
Buffy.
some point during Buffy.
Well, the funny thing is that I had an opportunity to be a toxic fan, and there's been a lot of baiting to people to get me to be a toxic fan. When there was talking a few years ago, they were talking about redoing Buffy, and that they were going to do a redo of Buffy, and right. A lot of people were like, "Oh hell no!" and you're going to ruin it. And because at the time that news came out, I was much more involved in talking about Buffy. I had a website going on, and I had like a blog, and I taught classes in Buffy 101 and talked about I was very, very involved, and I worked with Whedon Con. I was literally the director of publicity and marketing for a convention all about Buffy. So like hardcore into Buffy. And that was my opportunity to be very toxic. But my first thought was, oh, that's awesome. Because Buffy itself is of its time. The stories are timeless, but the setting was very late 90s, early 2000s, and that's not relatable for the audience that really needs it now, which is these young teens. It's all about growing up and dealing with the monsters and the demons of adolescence and becoming and surpassing those things and becoming an adult. That's what it's about. And so the people who could really benefit from that would never watch it now. It's so unrelatable. So remake it, make it relatable, tell those stories 100%. I want to see it. Let's do it. But it was very toxic in the Buffy fandom of like, you're going to ruin it, and that's sacrilegious and you can't touch it. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to really think about the time that I was toxic. I think it's probably just this.
But that is a toxic sludge you have tossed out onto us.
I'm 100% in support of always remaking, redoing. Why not? Let's do it. I understand people say, let's make original stories, but let's be honest. How many independent films do you go to? How many original stories do you go watch? Do you go watch the remakes more because it's going to make you more money, which is going to give studios money to make more films? I think remakes are fine. Reboots are fine. Do it. I don't care. It never takes away the original one. So I don't know. I don't know if that is my toxicity. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's important to look at like areas where you are a super huge fan of something, like almost an authority, and view yourself as like, have I ever been, toxic to a point? Like I've definitely been a super huge jerk with DC Comics before, and it's not necessarily of me being like gatekeeping, which I have been before, but it's I think more along the lines of like I'm just tired of like talking about it.
Okay, I'm with you. The original Buffy movie, I am a little toxic about that. The Buffy movie, I'm like, it's not Buffy.
And like, I think
it is like, for some people, so I am toxic about that.
Exactly. That's exactly where like people will like who know me, or I'm like, I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, and they're just like, let's see you defend the Green Lantern movie. I'm like, it's Green Lantern, it's Ryan Reynolds, it's great. I wasn't expecting Citizen Kane. The story was not great, and it was
fine.
Kind of weird, but like, I think it's Mark Strong is Sinestro. Like, yeah, it's great. But then I started going to like my levels of toxicity. Then I get into. I was like, so you didn't like it, but have you ever read the Sinestro Corps War? How much of Jeff Johns' work have you read? Do you even understand the references?
Do you even know what his brother's name is?
Like, do you even understand they brought in Kilowog and his whole backstory? Oh, you don't even know who Kilowog is? Why are we having this conversation? I've been that jerk before. But it's more along the lines of like you were saying, I don't like to be baited into it. And I don't feel the need to like defend stuff, but I think with superhero movies, because I've grown now up with them, and I think I've grown a little bit past them as far as like where they are. Like they're fantastic, and I don't think they're going anywhere, and I don't think superhero fatigue really exists. But it is something that I've been toxic about, and so
you're correct. It's not Buffy. And that is my toxic. That is my toxic trait right there. Yeah.
Joey says, I just wish they'd remake bad things with good concepts instead of already great things. Like, give me a remake of Hancock or In Time. What do you mean? Hancock was fantastic.
Fight!
I liked Hancock. That's though he's like, call me asshole one more time. Then he throws that little French kid up in the air, and like the French have had it too good for too long. But yeah, it's just something that I think is important to recognize. You know, like, are there things that you have entitlement for? Like I've developed a new level of fan entitlement to a brand new franchise. The Bear. Have you seen it?
The show?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen all of the show, but the episodes I've seen the first, I don't know, 8 or 9 episodes. Amazing. Fantastic.
Oh my goodness. One of the best shows, one of the best things I watched all of last year. That and Shrinking, which has got Harrison Ford, Jason Segel in it. But with The Bear, I was just like, oh man, I went into like the Bear subreddit. I was looking at merch. I was listening. So there's in the show,
so good at the deep dive, rabbit holes.
If you guys haven't watched, if you guys haven't watched The Bear, there's a shop called The Beef. I was working the other day and I was listening to a 10-hour ASMR soundscape of what it would be like to have your lunch inside The Beef. I listened to 6.5 hours, which means I didn't get up from my work chair for 6.5 hours.
You are the Alice in Wonderland of going down rabbit holes.
Yep. With not nearly as many drugs, everyone.
Not as many.
Yeah, I see, because I'm a host at heart. My instinct was to be like, Hancock was fantastic, but I also haven't seen that movie, so I'm like, ugh, I don't know what kind of hole I dug myself into. Yeah, it can get weak. But
I love it.
With all things toxic fandom, everyone, just a principle that me and Autumn have lived by, and this show will continue to live by, is love what you love, right? Watch what you watch, read what you read, listen to what you listen to. Yep. It's for you. It is like a gift right from the artist to you. It exists. But the moment that you start telling someone else that they're wrong for liking something,
to love those things,
or how to love this thing, that is when it becomes problematic. And just don't be that
unless
person.
It's about this.
Oh my goodness. That
wraps up our segment.
The psychology of hating what you love.
Psychology of hating what Autumn loves.
Yes, which is very easy to do. Well, thank you everyone for we're not done.
We're not done.
Thank you for engaging in this conversation with us. We really appreciate it. Again, we probably got a lot of stuff wrong, and if you want to tell us what we got wrong, do it over in the Fandom Socialites Facebook group. It is, I've got it here somewhere, right? Probably. I mean, let's do a little bit of housekeeping now.
Let's do it.
So you can go to our Facebook group and tell us everything that you loved, and we're less than thrilled with about the show over in the Fandom Socialites Facebook group, or you can email us at hello@fandomsocial.com if you're still emailing with your Gaggle account. You can find us on LinkedIn on Fandom Social. Now, some of these accounts we are less than
nothing there
currently, but it's only because it's just us two, and one of us has got to handle the marketing, and one of us has got to do some research, and there's not a lot of crossover. Because it's just
you can always tell who's been busy by what's being done and not done.
By like the stress levels. And what promo has and has not gone out. But we also have, you guys are here on YouTube. Find us on Instagram, Twitter, and we do have a website, fandomsocial.com.
Question from Joey over at YouTube, which is the only place we're streaming. Joey says, do y'all do mailbags? We definitely do. So definitely send in your emails, and we will be doing mailbag segments. We didn't have a whole lot of emails yet because, we're not good at that little bit of housekeeping. We don't do that every episode, but we're getting there.
But we do have a version of a mailbag, Autumn, which we will do right before we end the show. I had asked everyone to tell me something. Wait, what was the exact words that I used? I don't want to screw this up. Something good that happened to them this week. I'll read a few of those, but let's discuss before that our Explorathon. So we have
it's all wrapped in with future episodes.
An Explorathon, yes. So for everyone watching, again, welcome in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, please. It means the world to us. Now, The Explorathon is the segment of the show where it's essentially the collective, us and you, is our homework to watch, read, and listen to stuff that me and Autumn have not watched, read, or listened to. If you have, you can revisit it, or you can experience it with us for the first time. And this one's a special one because it is going to tie in to
which we haven't done before.
Our topic that we're covering next week. Now, Autumn, I think we should tell people what the topic is.
I think we should tell them the topic for this next episode and the one after that, because while they are two separate things, they do tie together.
Sorry, I had to bring this up.
Andrew, I love
Andrew Worshborn says, Fandom social with their forced diversity. Ugh, a woman and Hispanic? Why?
Wow.
Just some SJW trash.
Hey, our agenda, we are serving it up.
Mm-hmm. Right in our little right in our little notebooks there. But okay, Autumn, let's talk about what our topic is. Essentially, it's going to be for the next 2 weeks. And our next episode, again, remember everyone, is this light is bright.
Okay, our schedule's going to be a little wonky.
Yes.
In July. So our next episode is going to be next Sunday night, same time as this. So next Sunday night, 5 p.m/8 p.m. next Sunday. So 1 week from now. Then we're going to be dark. That's a showbiz term for no show for 2 weeks in a row, because this one's going on some kind of trip. And then the week after that, I'm going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. So we're going to skip 2 weeks, and then we'll be back the week after that, which I believe is the 30th of July. So the 9th and the 30th are our next 2 episodes. And they're going to be
you're going to Comic-Con, right?
I'm going to Comic-Con all 5 days. I'm super excited.
In Hawaii.
Yes.
I'm going to Hawaii.
That's amazing.
I have shorts on, everyone. Nice. Sorry. But it is so we're very excited. So without further ado, Autumn, do you want to talk about what our next topic is?
Okay, so our next topic is going to be a 2-parter, just like we just finished up a 2-parter. This time we're going to be dealing with two different directors, 2 different artists who have created a whole genre of films around fear, like horror films, but a very specific genre of horror films that I'm calling societal or sociological or social horror. And our the first subject is going to be Alfred Hitchcock next week. And then 2 weeks after that, or 3, whatever that is, we're going to be talking about Jordan Peele. Both of these are artists, completely different decades, completely different time periods, but we feel that each of these directors tapped into the fears and the anxieties and the social issues of their time, which is why they were so impactful. So next week, we're going to be talking all about social horror and Alfred Hitchcock.
Now, we're going to be doing it through the lens of 3 movies from each director. We'll reveal maybe in the Facebook group which movies we're using for research and which we're watching, because we'd like to watch along. But so now that you have that information, we can talk a bit about our Explorathon, because it does play into it. Autumn, do you want to bring in which you just start talking and I'll bring up the
we are going. We picked, usually our watch, read, listen have been not related, but we thought this time it would be fun to pick things. So first thing we're going to do is for our watch. I picked off of the Alfred Hitchcock had a film that was called A Stranger on a Train. Strangers on a Train, I think is what it's called. Yeah, Strangers on a Train. And that is 2 strangers meet each other on a train, get to talking, and they realize they can help each other out with some very difficult situations they're in, and plan the perfect murder, and that they would each murder someone for each other, so that there would be no way to tie them in. They would have nobody would be able to know who did it, basically. So they come up with this thing. And so for the first time this week, we're going to have 2 for the watch, because in 1987 there was another movie that was made inspired by this film that I only watched once when it first came out a long time ago, but
I've never heard of it.
Throw Mama from the Train, which is like a remake inspiration from Strangers on a Train with Danny DeVito and Billy Crystal. I would watch these 2 in anything. And they are so fantastic. So it's a remake of this. It's not a direct remake, but it's more inspired by it. Yes. Thank you, John. We were a step ahead of you. So we are going to watch both of those. And there are they do reference Strangers on a Train in Throw Mama from the Train.
Mm-hmm.
And a fun fact, the woman who played Danny DeVito's mom, who I can't remember her name right now, I have it up here somewhere, but she was the woman from Goonies, the mom. And
right.
She won all kinds of awards for Best Supporting Actress and other awards for her role in this film. So you guys, Throw Mama from a Train and Strangers on a Train are going to be our 2 watch from the Explorathon.
Very, very excited. Anne Ramsey is her name. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve Nara.
Darcy Spence says, I just watched Throw Mama from the Train.
Nice.
Well, Darcy, you got to watch it again.
You can just watch Strangers on a Train now. So it's going to be so much fun. Yes,
Casual Nerd Problems.
Awesome
Hello.
Character. Yes.
Awesome character. She was hilarious.
I watched this when it came out in 90. Probably I was telling Paul I watched it when I rented it at Blockbuster Video or Hollywood Video, one of those. So I watched it a long time ago.
Is that a streaming service?
That was a physical place you went to get a VHS, and we had. You go to someone's house; they're very rich. They had a VCR rewinder.
Very rich.
Yeah.
We had a race car that popped up and that would rewind the tapes.
Yes.
And I broke that thing a couple of times, and my dad doesn't know until now, unless he's watching. But yeah, I broke that thing a few times. So I still rewind all my
because you're kind.
My DVDs.
Yeah, all your streaming service things. So that's going to be our watch. For our read, we are going to read a book that is called Our House.
Nope.
It's called Our House by Louise Candlish. The reason why this is related is because it was inspired by an episode of 1950s Alfred Hitchcock Presents television series. Kind of inspired by multiple episodes. So the idea is if you like Alfred Hitchcock, if you like those kind of whodunit, mystery things, nightmare, scary films, this book is going to be our book. It is available on Audible as well as you can buy it pretty much anywhere, but it's called Our House. I will read really quick.
Our House.
It says, Our House delivers a shocker right out of the gate as Fiona Lawson arrives from an out-of-town trip to find a family of strangers moving into the suburban home she and her husband Bram have occupied for 2 years. So they're moving into her house when she shows up. What's more, Bram and their 2 young children have vanished. So she comes home from a trip. There's people moving into her house. Her husband and children are gone. Fiona will not be able to escape the trap of this nightmare until she disentangles the secrets in her troubled marriage. The surprise twist ending, no spoilers here, takes a page from the 1950s Alfred Hitchcock Presents television series, which frequently pulled the rug out from unsuspecting viewers with a final act of warped violence. So there's
no spoilers.
Something crazy is going on. So we're going to watch we're going to read Our House, or you can listen to it on Audible.
Her husband's gone and she's got this whole place to herself. It sounds like a vacation.
Yeah.
I know. Screw them.
Yes.
So all right. Now our listen is something that you found. And you've been crushing these and you found these. So I'm going to let you lead yourself in here and we'll talk about it. It's so weird.
Idea this existed. It's so called, weird. Want to put it up on the screen? You can find it on Spotify. Alfred Hitchcock Presents Music to be Murdered by. Okay, I didn't know this existed. I found it as I was searching for Alfred Hitchcock related things to listen to. And so I went over to Spotify, I found it, it's there. And I just played a few seconds of one track and it's him talking. And then I scanned forward a little bit more and there is some music. So I don't know anything about this other than he's talking and he'll introduce something and then music is going to play. So let's check it out. If you've already listened to this and you know all about it.
No spoilers,
because I am intrigued.
Did you look? Is it on Spotify?
Yes, I found it on Spotify.
Oh,
the whole album it's there. And
so excited.
He also does have an album that you can listen to that's him telling ghost stories to little kids or scary stories. It's supposed to be for kids. But I thought this would be more fun. It's him introducing music and then music plays and then he's talking again at the end. I don't know, but let's do it.
Alfred Hitchcock's like a menace.
Yes. And the funny
thing
is, it's not like he's introducing music at the top of the track and then at the end. It's every track he's talking first and then there's music.
Okay.
So let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll get in. Now everyone remember, so that's our Explorathon topics. 1 week to
Yes.
do these. Not to confuse with the Eminem album. Yes.
Yes.
Eminem did do like a tribute to it. So,
Yes.
no, it's the Alfred Hitchcock,
Alfred Hitchcock.
diss track. I didn't know they were beefing until I heard the Eminem album. But,
yes, Eminem did make an album, and he did call it the same thing, and he did recreate that cover of himself, which is what I thought. I didn't know what that was, but I found it. I thought, oh, let's listen to this, and then I realized, oh no, it's not just a photo that he was recreating. Mm-hmm. There's an album. So
yeah, I'll probably end up listening to both.
I'm probably gonna listen to both.
You don't for the homework. You don't have to listen to both, but if you would like extra credit,
sure,
you can listen to both. But we're doing the Alfred Hitchcock version.
He says it is also streaming on Amazon Music. Thank you so much. So you guys have a lot of homework this week because we are meeting in 1 week. If you want to watch some Hitchcock films along with us, you can. To get ready for the talk next week, you absolutely can, but you don't have to. But the homework is going to be Strangers on a Train and Throw Mama from the Train. It's going to be the book called Our House, and it's going to be the album called Music to be Murdered by. Alfred Hitchcock presents Music to be Murdered by. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to dive into this.
Do you already know what films we're going to be watching if people do want to watch along?
So we'll probably be doing The Birds, Vertigo, and
Rear Window.
Rear Window, yes.
Rear Window. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll put those in the group as far as what the research movies are, as well as the Explorathon. They will be separate posts, and they'll be coming from either myself or Autumn. But yeah, they're going to be super fun.
I'm excited.
And you guys only have a week to do it this time. I'm so sorry. But we'll make sure that the homework's extra juicy for the break that we have when we go into the Jordan Peele Part 2 episode of it. But it should be fun. I do like how a lot of us are very type A, and like we're the people who were doing the group project. So like everyone's here, like Jen Edwards, I just saw their comment, and there's like no pressure, but lots of pressure. Oh, lots of pressure.
God. So much work. You guys, take the week off of work. You know what? It's 4th of July. A lot of you probably have at least one day off. So, like, there you go. That's how you should spend it.
Well, everyone, we are rounding 2 hours. So we're going to be wrapping here soon. But as promised, I did ask everyone in the group, tell me something good that happened to you this week in Autumn. Let's read a few of these because I didn't get a chance to react to all of them. So let's see. Lauren Ashley Zerillo says, I spent a day at a camp doing lice checks on 1,000 kids. Everything is itchy. That wasn't it. That's not exactly what we asked.
I did not understand the assignment.
No. We had Angela said, my husband surprised me with a little pool so we can beat the Texas heat. Oh, and she got a new job earlier and has been getting praised all week.
Oh, congrats.
Matthew Weekly, longtime friend of the show, says he turned 50 this week.
Happy birthday and welcome. Welcome to the 50s club. It's wonderful. You no longer
quarter life.
Anyone thinks about
because you're living to be 200, Matthew. You're living to be 200, non-negotiable. Tina Cruz says, I got more hot toys and ate Korean hot pot that led to a food coma.
Oh, nice. Steve Miller said something nice, not lice. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
That's the mistake. Got it.
Casual Nerd Problems. Yes. Sure. We have a group on Facebook. It is Fandom Socialites. It's pretty active. Almost everyone that's here, if you've interacted with anyone here in these comments, they're in that group chat. So please come in, hang out. It's a nice, positive, chill place to just talk about fandom and not Buffy. So Ed Sella has an interesting take. Says, I was told 4 hours ago that I'm going to be working for another boss. I'm going to go against my nature and try to think of it as a good thing.
Okay. That's a positive outlook, and I like that.
I love that, Ed.
You can't control the things that happen to you, but you can control how you feel about it.
Exactly, Autumn. Very well said. Joe Gardner said, I finally made a list of the trade collections I have, so I'm not staring endlessly at the wall of my LCS trying to remember what I need.
Yes.
Oh, man. If you need a list, go to this one.
A spreadsheet, maybe?
Nerd. Jeez. Krista Jimenez Golden says we had our fiscal year target numbers yesterday at my job.
Nice.
That was a very professional sentence. She said that one for the business shouties.
Nice.
Now, Alex Aronowitz, who is not here, will make this one of the The last one says, I got rid of an old couch, rearranged storage, brought home a bunch of toys to give away. I love that. And saw Across the Spider-Verse for the 4th time.
Wow.
And he got to the theater early for Indiana Jones. And so he hung out and watched a partial screening. And then he filled a bag of toys to donate to a themed bar in Portland. So he'll be doing that. And you know what? No, I lied. The last one is going to be Adriana Gonzalez, who said, I made the last payment on a trip I've been wanting to go on since 2014.
Japan, right?
Things keep happening to me. Fingers crossed it finally happens. I believe, because we are friends with Adriana, I believe she's going to Japan.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. What about you? What's a good thing that happened to you this week?
We got the script done. It was a photo finish. Like the point where it was done 10 minutes before this. No, but seriously, I got back into routine. I was in LA for a bit. I was in LA for a week. Didn't see Autumn. I was actively avoiding her. Also, we cannot stress enough how busy Autumn is.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
It is ridiculous. But I work out pretty frequently. I have a pretty particular food that I like to eat. I like my space. I love my family. I love my friends. But it was really nice to be able to come back from vacation and work and be able to just get into my routine. And I watched The Bear. I cannot stress enough. I really love that show. So, what about you?
I got a pair of Converse in the mail from my mom, who knows my heart, and got me a pair of Converse that I did not already own, and that fit me and are great, and that it had been on my list. Yeah, had been on my list. I have a wish list. I have a search list.
What are the shoes that you got you?
It's part. You really. I mean, just a pair of black shoes, and it's part of a collection that Converse came out with a couple of years ago. That was part of their Pride Month, and they've had some really good ones. And one of them just said, "It's my story," in words around it. So it's all about celebrating everyone's personal stories, their own stories to tell. And it just says those words along the bottom. And she got me those ones, and I'm like, love it. Thank you, Mom. She got them for me for my birthday, which is not for another month and a half, and said I couldn't wait. I'm gonna send them to you. I was like, I love that whole line of thinking. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I got my first present of the year.
It's your only. It's don't get used to it. That's your birth. That's your birth miss present.
So that makes pair number 71.
Goodness gracious, Autumn.
I feel like I should just straight go for 100 now. I mean,
at this point, I don't like that it's 71. That bothers me. Definitely get 100. Oh, and and then lastly, for the collective show, it was really cool to be on. Toy Quest 101. Again, thank you to Miguel and everyone that was on that panel. If you are here from that show, because they did allow us to do some promo on them for the show. Say hi, welcome, join the group, follow us, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you so much again for having us. And with that, thank you everyone for joining us. We got out of here in just under 2.5 hours on it. It's perfect. I feel like we should just round it.
This is what happens when we don't have a producer behind the scenes going, okay, guys.
Apparently the casting calls we're putting out for these celebrity
we are now hiring
illegal.
We're now hiring for 15 new positions. None of them pay. So, I don't know why we're not getting any applications. It's really weird.
So I think I'm sorry. I'm just starting to see comments about people not wanting to watch The Bear, and I'm going to choose to ignore it. But it's okay. It is really good. Check it out.
Toxic. Ignore that.
Oh, I know. Oh, stop gaslighting me. But thank you so much, everyone. Again, enjoy the holiday if you're off tomorrow.
Yeah.
Go watch something you love, listen to something you love, read something you love, and spend time with people you love. So if that was us today, thank you so much. I don't know if I'm in love yet, but I'm getting there. So
I love you guys. I'm just not in love with you guys.
We're just not.
That's our new catchphrase, our new sign off.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, it's only our 3rd show. Maybe after the 6th.
Let's slow down a little. I'm going to take it a step at a time.
We love you. We're not in love with you. Do the homework. Thank you for watching. Thanks for breaking my flow, Desmond. Actually, that was Autumn's fault. It's not your fault, Desmond. I apologize. Thank you guys so much for being with us. Have a great holiday. Have a great Sunday. And we will see you at another time. Goodbye.
Catch
Man, we need to sign up.
We do.
We love you, but we're not in love with you.